Namaskaram. At the very outset, let us wish you all a wonderful evening. Once, in the dream of a night, I stood, lone in the light of a magical wood, soul deep in visions that poppy like sprang. Thus bespoke Sarojini Naidu in her poem Song of a Dream. Today, we are here to celebrate the 142nd birth anniversary of Sarojini Naidu. The day is also commemorated as National Women's Day. It is a celebration of the intellectual and artistic endeavor of the great Indian poet, freedom fighter, and social activist hailed as the Nightingale of India. As a tribute to such a great woman, a woman with her poetic prose and visionary ideals, exalted the richness of Indian culture and tradition through literature and through politics. We, the students of the Department of English, VTMNSS College, Dhanuvachapuram, is presenting a video documentary before you.
Sarojini Naidu was one of the dazzling faces among the freedom fighters of pre-independent India. Throughout her lifespan, she stood as an ambassador of real strength and tireless courage. In the early 20th century, at a time when society considered women as weak and subordinate, Naidu's exertions, along with other leaders of freedom struggle in the political terrain, made a furious turbulence during the imperialist colonial regime in India. She was not only connected with politics but also with literature. Her poetic endowments are remarkable for its theme and brilliant musical quality. Through her poetry, she evoked a spirit of nationalism and patriotism among the ordinary mass. She was a multifaceted personality, and her name is engraved in golden letters in the history of India.
The Gift of India is a poem written by Sarojini Naidu as a tribute to Indian soldiers who had sacrificed their lives in foreign warfields during First World War. This emotional poem also portrays the profits reaped by Britishers from our nation as the gift of India. Is there aught you need that my hands withhold, rich gifts of raiment or grain or gold? Lo, I have flung to the east and west priceless treasures torn from my breast, and yielded the sons of my stricken womb to the drumbeats of duty, the sabres of doom. Gather like pearls in their alien graves, silent they sleep by the Persian waves, scattered like shells on Egyptian sands. They lie with pale brows and brave broken hands. They are strewn like blossoms mown down by chance on the blood-brown meadows of Flanders and France. Can you measure the grief of the tears I weep, or the compass the view of the watch I keep, or the pride that thrills to my heart's despair, and the hope that comforts the anguish of prayer?
Naidu was born as Sarojini Chattopadhyay on 30th February 1879 in Hyderabad in present Telangana. Her parental house was in Bengal, but due to certain social circumstances, Sarojini's father, Akhurana Chattopadhyay, was forced to move from Bengal to Hyderabad. Akhurana Chattopadhyay was an eminent academician who had a doctorate in science from Edinburgh University and administrated a college which later came to be known as Nizam College in Hyderabad. Sarojini's mother, Bharadasundari Devi Chattopadhyay, was a poet and used to write in her mother tongue Bengali. Sarojini was the eldest of her 8 siblings. Among her siblings, her brother Virendranath Chattopadhyay was a politician, and another brother, Harindranath, was popular as a poet, dramatist, and an actor. Hers was a reputed family in Hyderabad because of her father's position in Nizam College and of the artistic background of the family members. This aesthetic environment of the family persuaded Sarojini in her literary career. On saying about her education, she passed her examination from University of Madras at the age of 12, and some years later she got a scholarship for higher studies in England. First, she joined the King's College in London and later she moved to the Gridon College in Cambridge.
The poem Cradle Song is a beautiful and simple lullaby written by Sarojini Naidu. The poem is very soothing with its wide range of subtle images. Cradle Song. From groves of spice or fields of rice, athwart the lotus stream, I bring for you, a glen with dew, a little lovely dream. Sweet, shut your eyes, the wild fireflies dance through the fairy neem. From the poppy bowl, for you I stole a little lovely dream. Dear eyes, good night. In golden light, the stars around you gleam. On you I press, with soft caress, a little lovely dream.
Govindarajlu Naidu, a non-Brahmin physician with whom Sarojini fell in love with. She later married him after completing her studies. The marriage resulted in changing her surname from Sarojini Chattopadhyay to Sarojini Naidu. It was an intercaste as well as inter-regional marriage that combined two different cultures and traditions. Such marriages were not common at that time, and it can be considered as Sarojini Naidu's first step against the prevailing discriminations in the early 20th century India. The couple had 5 children: Jayasurya, Padmaja, Nilava, Leelamani, and Ranathira. Her daughter Padmaja followed her path in the freedom struggles and participated in the Quit India movement. Naidu was like an influential star in the land of India, and the star burned last on 2nd March 1949.
Wandering Singers by Sarojini Naidu. The Wandering Singers is yet another poem written by Sarojini Naidu. It renders the journey of a band of folk singers from place to place to sing the song of love. The poem, where the voice of the wind calls our wandering feet through echoing forest and echoing street, with lutes in our hands, ever singing we roam. All men are our kindred, the world is our home. Our lays are of cities whose lustres shed the laughter and the beauty of women long dead. The sword of all battles, the crown of all kings, and happy and simple and sorrowful things.
Sarojini Naidu had an influential political career as a freedom fighter and as an activist. She always stood for the emancipation of women and other social welfare activities. In politics, Gopalakrishna Gokhale was her preceptor. Because of his influence, she became a part of Indian independence movement during the protests and outbreaks in the wake of partition of Bengal in 1905. Later, she met Gandhiji in London and became his disciple. From there, she commenced her legendary venture into Gandhian philosophies and it continued till her death. Along with Gopalakrishna Gokhale and Mahatma Gandhi, leaders like Jawaharlal Nehru and Rabindranath Tagore also inspired her. She was a good orator with a unique, intuitive style. She traveled across India and delivered lectures, instilling the ideas of emancipation of women, social welfare, and spirit of nationalism among the Indian masses. It was a time when women were considered inferior to men and were afraid to come to the mainstream society. By breaking away from such societal norms and barriers, Sarojini Naidu entered to the forefront. Her role in liberating women from the controlling traditional modes and beliefs were noteworthy. Thus, she became one of the founders of Women's Indian Association. She also worked for the women's right to vote and submitted petition advocating the same along with Annie Besant. She was a staunch opposer of the British colonial policy in India and upholded the idea of Swaraj. From 1920 onwards, freedom struggles and protests in India became expeditious. Sarojini Naidu became a part of Satyagraha movement under the leadership of Gandhiji.
Friends, I come to you from many thousand miles away as the ambassador of a very ancient country to the youngest nation in the world. It may surprise you that a country which you are taught to regard as conservative should have chosen a woman to be its representative and ambassador. But if you read aright the whole history of Indian civilization, you will realize that woman has been the very pivot of its culture, of it all its inspiration, and of all the embassies of peace that have gone abroad for many centuries to the uttermost parts of the world.
Sarojini Naidu can be regarded as one of the most potential women leaders in India. She had a strong optimism in her heart and hope for a dawn of independence. Her such emotions can be seen in her words. In the battle of liberty, fear is one unforgivable treachery, and despair is the one unforgivable sin. Sarojini Naidu was an active member of Indian National Congress. The INC meeting conducted in Kanpur selected her as the first woman president of INC. In the history of India's independence movement, salt satyagraha had a significant space. The satyagraha was a direct act against British salt monopoly. Gandhiji decided not to include women in Dandi March because of its perilous nature. But Sarojini Naidu opposed this idea and passionately involved in Dandi March along with some other women freedom fighters. On the initial days of March, Gandhiji was arrested for unlawful making of salt. Thus Sarojini Naidu came to the leadership of Salt Satyagraha. Later, she along with some other leaders were arrested and were made prisoners. The jail life never affected Sarojini and did not make her despair, but it energized her patriotism. She was an ardent follower of Gandhi and believed in his ideologies in attaining freedom. The powerful civil disobedient movements such as Quit India movement and non-cooperation movement were the last among the movements against imperial British rule. She participated in that movements too. Thus, India became independent on 15th August 1947 and Sarojini Naidu was appointed as the first woman governor of independent India in United Provinces.
To India is a patriotic poem written by Sarojini Naidu. The poem intends to make the Mother India rise with full strength and combat against imperialism. O young, through all thy immemorial years, rise, Mother, rise, regenerate from thy gloom, and like a bride high mated with the spheres, beget new glories from thine ageless womb. The nations that in fettered darkness weep crave thee to lead them where great mornings break. Mother, O Mother, wherefore those sleep? Arise and answer for thy children's sake.
Sarojini Naidu had an inborn literary talent and started writing poetry from a very young age itself. At the age of 15, she moved to London for higher studies, where she met literary persons Arthur Symons and Edmund Gosse and developed a close friendship with them. Initially, she was fascinated with Western culture and poetry, especially the poems of Tennyson, Shelley, Keats, and pre-Raphaelite poets. This fascination was clearly visible in her early poems. It was Edmund Gosse who advised Sarojini Naidu to write on the theme of her own motherland. Thus, she began to write exclusively on Indian themes. The ordinary Indian people, their lives, nature, villages, etc. shaped the subject of Naidu's poetry. Even though the language she wrote was in English, The soul of her poem were distinctly Indian. Her poetry was recognized both in the East as well as the West. Her poems are notable for its perfect lyrical beauty and splendid imagery. She was acknowledged and hailed as Bulbul Hind or the Nightingale of India or Bharata Kogilam by none other than Mahatma Gandhi. Many great and eminent Indian leaders were also influenced by her poetry. With the philosophy of spiritualism, she defined the themes of love, nature, patriotism, life and death through her poetry. Her first poetry collection was named under the title The Golden Threshold and was published in 1905 in London. This was followed by the publication of other volumes of poetry such as The Bird of Time in 1912 and The Broken Wing in 1917. One of her poetry collection, The Feather of Dawn, was published posthumously in 1961.
Autumn Song is a short poem written by Sarojini Naidu. The poet's internal feelings are depicted in this poem. Here, autumn is a metaphor for different hues of life. Autumn Song. Like a joy on the heart of a sorrow, the sunset hangs on a cloud, a golden stone of glittering sheaves, of fair and frail and fluttering leaves. The wild wind blows in a cloud. Hark to a voice that is calling, to my heart in the voice of the wind. My heart is weary and sad and alone, for its dreams like the fluttering leaves have gone, and why should I stay behind?
Her poetry is pregnant with vivid imageries and a distinctive Indian tone. Her poetry served as a glue that united Indians against the atrocities they had faced in form of imperialism and religion as well as caste. She unveiled the magic of love through her love poems. One among such love poems is the Rajput love song. It was set against the background of medieval chivalric romance and it depicts the love of Parvati, the princess, and Amar Singh, the warrior prince. She was a nature lover and was enchanted with the magnificence of nature. Some of her nature poems include Spring, Golden Cassia, and Chambak blossoms. She was attracted by the simple life of Indian villagers and through some of her poems, she summoned them to rise from suppression. For instance, through her poems like Coromandel Fishers, Indian Weavers, the Bangle Sellers, and the Palanquin Bearers, she called to emancipate these villages from the hegemonic oppression they faced.
Sarojini Naidu was one of the most recognized and reputed personality in the world. She was awarded with Kaiser-i-Hind Medal by the British government for her selfless work during the time of plague epidemic in India. However, she returned the award to mark her protest against the British government on account of the Jallianwala Bagh massacre. In honor of her prestigious services for the emancipation of women and by considering her power and strength as a woman, 13th February, her birthday is celebrated as National Women's Day. The titles The Nightingale of India, Bharata Kogilam and Bulbul Hind was given to her as a recognition for her excellent poetry.
What my country says to you, it says in the words of the old Hindu prayer that rises up in every home night after night. Shanti, 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 peace, peace, peace. And I think whether it be the old world or the new world, the whole purpose of our civilization is to create and to sustain those conditions of peace for our own homes and for the homes of the nations of the world.
Sarojini Naidu was remembered for her pursuits and contributions to literature, politics, and social activism. She was a determined woman with valor and an optimistic will. She dreamt for a modern, secular India and urged the student communities to stand against racial and communal discrimination. She also contributed considerably towards education and liberation movements. She raised her voice against social and political oppressions and still stands as a symbol of patriotic valor and limitless courage. With utmost humbleness, we stand together, heads bowed, and in reverence in front of a great lady, a great human, and above all the representative of a great nation. Thank you.
Before we draw the curtain to our documentary, with great reverence, we humbly present before you a dance tribute to the Nightingale of India. Indian Dancers by Sarojini Naidu. Sarojini Naidu presents a beautiful and rhythmic physical movement of the performers in the poem and throws light on the aspect of community life. She essentially shows the Indianness, Indian culture and tradition. In the perspective of human relationship, the lyric can be perceived as a record of unity in diversity. The poem: eyes ravished with rapture, celestially panting, what passionate bosoms flaming with fire, drink deep of the hush of the hyacinth, heavens that glimmer around them in fountains of light. Oh, wild and entrancing the strain of keen music that cleaveth the stars like a veil of desire, and beautiful dancers with Ari-like faces bewitch the voluptuous watches of night. The scents of red roses and sandalwood flutter and die in the maze of their gem-tangled hair, and smiles are entwining like magical serpents the poppies of lips that are opiate sweet. Their glittering garments of purple are burning like tremulous dawns in the curing air, and exquisite, subtle and slow are the tingle and tread of their rhythmical slumber. Now silent, now singing and swaying and swinging like blossoms that bend to the breezes or showers. Now wantonly winding, they flash, now they falter, and lingering languish in radiant choir. Their jewel-girt arms and warm wavering lily-long fingers enchant through melodious hours. Eyes ravished with rapture, celestially panting, what passionate bosoms flaming with fire.